Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's Blue York One News. I'm Jonathan Sauerschell for NYCFC Blues and Blue City Radio. This week we're going to discuss what was a good defensive performance for NYCFC, pretend that the bad offensive performance didn't happen, and look forward to this week's game when we finally go back on the road, which perhaps might be a positive for the boys from New York. First off, let's review what happened this past week. Sunday night, NYCFC took on the Chicago Fire at Yankee Stadium to end our four-game homestand. NYCFC welcomed Patrick Mullins into the starting lineup with David V on the left wing, and we went back to a 4-3-3 with a center-back partnership of Frederick Brilliant and Jason Hernandez after Ethan White picked up an injury during warm-ups right before the game started. This move seemed to work out really well for NYCFC as Chicago got a grand total of 0 shots on target. That's right, 0 shots on target. Needless to say, we did not allow a goal, even though there was a close call in the 56th minute when Chicago might have had a goal wrongly called offside. It is borderline, you'd have to judge for yourself. But other than that, Chicago looked inept on attack. Holding the ball very little, only having 8 total shots at all, and 0 of them reaching Josh Saunders, who had an extremely quiet game. However, NYCFC also struggled in attack. While Villa looked to gain more space on the left, he seemed to try to force things. Mullins was not getting any service, and the right winger, Steven Mendoza, seemed to like to dribble inside, and then end up giving it back to Chicago. Andrea Pirlo actually was isolated in a deeper midfield role, and while doing a decent job defensively, only had 45 touches on the ball. Part of the reason was he seemed to lose connectivity with Mix Discruit and Tommy McNamara, who also struggled to influence the final third in any particularly great manner, though they did work very hard to close down space in the midfield, part of the reason why we only allowed 0 shots on target. However, in the end, NYCFC couldn't score themselves, and the game ended a 0-0 draw. That's right, a 0-0 draw. When was the last time that happened for NYCFC? We couldn't score, and they in Chicago got nowhere near scoring for the most part. So, as much as Chicago was missing David Akam, that they were just looked really poor, and NYCFC had complete control of that game defensively. So we want to take the positives out of that and look forward to the rest of the season. The defense has improved steadily since the first week, and finally getting a clean sheet, and continuing to look like an actual, real MLS professional defense, which is not something we could have said in 2015. Credit to that goes to Patrick Vieira and the work he's putting in on the practice field with his players, and they seem to be listening to his methods and adhering to them rather well. So hopefully that can continue this week as NYCFC actually go back on the road and go into Columbus to Mapfre Stadium to play the Columbus Crew on Saturday night. Now, normally going on the road is a bad thing. Most people like the games at home. We get to see our team. We have the home crowd advantage. And again, with another 23,000 plus at the Yankee Stadium, it was another good crowd on a chilly Sunday night. But yet there seems to be this missing link at Yankee Stadium, and perhaps going on the road will benefit NYCFC. NYCFC wants to play slick, smart possession football, creating space, finding players into open spaces, creating scoring opportunities that way. Now, their only other road game was the opening game of the season in Chicago, which was really a track meet as both teams just flew up and down the field. However, you did notice NYCFC found plenty of space for their attacking players. Some of that might have been because of Chicago's defense, but it could be because of the size of the field. Many critics have talked about the size of Yankee Stadium and how narrow it is and how it affects the play. But what I think sometimes they might be missing is that it could actually hurt NYCFC more. NYCFC's game is all about finding space. If you're playing at home and the field's narrow and you're playing with a front three, you're putting a lot of people into a smaller area. Combine that with the fact that visiting teams are more likely to sit deep, absorb pressure, defend compactly, and then try to counterattack, and you have a recipe for a situation where NYCFC can't really find space. One telling thing to note is how few times the fullbacks were able to overlap and put in and to get on the ball in a deeper area. Ronald Matarrita did it a couple times and put in a few good crosses, and Donny Iriola did it never during the game. And I think that could be because of the width of the field and just their inability for any space for them to get into. So it'll be interesting to see this week as we're going back on the road if there is a difference in the style of play and how it looks. Kind of early to tell, and this is only the second road game, and the first one almost doesn't count because it was so crazy. But it is something to look for this week, this Saturday night in Columbus, is how NYCFC look in comparison in terms of the fluidity in the final third, their ability to connect passes, and if they'll be able to create space for David Villa. Also of note from Sunday's game is 2 players were suspended from the game. Kyrie Shelton and Mikey Lopez Jr. were suspended for the match by Patrick Vieira for what he deemed a disrespectful social media post that had gone up on Friday. This post, which was believed to be one actually done for Fox Sports, was a quick video of the two of them, a video that they took of the two of them leaving training on Friday and talking about the upcoming match, in which they did kind of ask the theoretical question, who's our opponent this week? And they said, doesn't really matter, we don't care, we're going to win. We believe this to be the video in question. Nobody's really sure. It was posted on Fox Video's site, and nobody's confirmed if that was the case. However, Patrick Vieira, whatever the video was, Patrick Vieira felt it disrespectful to the opposition and not the way in which he wants his players to conduct themselves. So he did suspend them for that game on Sunday. Credit to Mikey Lopez has already come out on Twitter since then and accepted full responsibility for his actions. He did seem to be the one recording the video himself, and he takes full accountability. He come up right up and said that. And Patrick Vieira did not specify what the video was, nor did go into too many details, only that he felt it was disrespectful, and this was the appropriate punishment, and they're moving on from that. So we'll see what role they'll play this week for NYCFC. We really weren't sure what role they were going to play last week, other than Patrick Vieira said they were supposed to be in the squad. Does that mean Shelton was going to start on the right wing instead of Steven Mendoza? Not really sure. Does that mean Mikey Lopez is going to be on the bench instead of Quadrupoku or somebody? We're not really sure. But it will be interesting to see what happens this week of training and then what their roles are for Saturday in Columbus. But something of note, and it's a sign of Patrick Vieira stamping his authority on this team in every way that he can. Now, you can agree or disagree with his methods, but he's being very clear to all parties involved of what he expects from his players and how he expects them to act. He does not want to give the opposition any more bulletin board material or give them something else to use as motivation. So, and in that sense, that's certainly a fair goal for the coach of the team. Again, you can form your own judgment. I already have. But of note, something to look for the rest of the season is how the team interacts both on the field and off the field in the social media realm, which is a whole another layer of complexity to running and managing a professional sports team in the year 2016. This week, as we go to Columbus, the Columbus Crew have 0 wins this season. That's right, the defending Eastern Conference champions have 0 wins on the season and have only scored 3 goals in 2016. This is not something you would expect, and certainly nobody would have predicted this, but they seem to be playing a little stale so far. There have been some questions about their tactics and if they're going to change it up. Kai Kamara is getting the same amount of shots per game, but he's not finishing them, so those shots might not be of the same quality as last year. And in all, there seems to be a lack of balance. The defense has struggled. Currently, the center midfield has not been as strong, and Federico Higuain has not really cemented himself in that number 10 role. That being said, they are a quality team. A team with Kai Kamara, with Will Trapp, with Ethan Finlay, with Higuain. They're good. We know they're good. They're Eastern Conference champions last year for a reason. And while they're not that much different this year, and in some ways that could be a negative, as there is no fresh spark to liven things up for a new season, that does mean they still have a lot of quality. NYCFC has already come out. Patrick Vieira said today that this is going to be one of the hardest games of the season. It is in a way a danger game. You never want to go to a team 5 games into the season that has not won a game yet. That is always tough if you're the opponent, because at some point they're going to find a way to win. And you don't want it to be against you. However, NYCFC is also coming in possibly being freed from the burden of being at home in the way in which their play has struggled, and maybe being on the road could be a positive for NYCFC, just to maybe clear their minds of their struggles at Yankee Stadium, because you can tell from watching on Sunday's game that they were pressing a little bit. So you got to wonder if going on the road might be a positive for them as well. The last time we were in Columbus, the only time we were in Columbus last year, was a 2-2 draw, famous for Quadrupoku having 2 goals, and a rain delay late in the game that almost canceled the game, or almost postponed and suspended the game at that point in time for NYCFC. It was in the month of August. It was a lightning storm. They ended up finishing it up, and it ended up a 2-2 draw. So it'll be interesting to see if it is as even half as exciting or interesting as that game was from last season. NYCFC is still fairly healthy. As a matter of fact, Jack Harrison, though not yet eligible for this game because being placed on the disabled list, is almost back in full training with the squad. That means at this point the only players we're really missing from full training are Connor Brandt and Frank Lampard, who's actually been away from the team a little bit this week to just get away from the situation as he continues to struggle to recover from his leg muscle injury. So NYCFC will have a full team to choose from. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the front 3. Last week they went with Mullins, Villa, and Mendoza, and it didn't seem to quite work. Later on in that game, they took off Mullins and put on Tony Taylor and put Villa back through the middle, and it didn't really make much of a difference either. It'll be interesting if Kyrie Shelton gets a start after his 1-week suspension, if Patrick Mullins gets another start, and how the team really operates. Perhaps there might be time to change something in midfield for a game. So could Quadrupoku get a start? The other thing to look for is Andrea Pirlo, who was isolated against Chicago. Will they go back to a 3-man back line to add Federico Bravo to the mix, as he seems to really help Andrea Pirlo get on the ball? Now, if he doesn't, and they stick with the 4-3-3, which was very successful this past week, and really, how can you not stick with that back 4 since they allowed 0 shots on target? What are you going to do about Pirlo, and how are you going to find him room on the ball? He got taken out of the game on Sunday by Razvan Kokis, and they want him to obviously to be on the ball a lot more than that. He's Andrea Pirlo. You're paying him for a reason, and that reason is to get on the ball and to make good passes. So there'll be something to look for in terms of the tactics on Saturday. I think NYCFC will stick with the 4-3-3. It'd be silly not to. When you have been such a good defensive game, you want to keep that rolling. You want to keep that defense rolling out. And even if it wasn't the original plan back 4, it worked out wonderfully. And you want to continue that momentum. You want those 2 center backs to continue to play together after they've shown some comfort. So Jason Hernandez and Frederick Brillant will probably get the start again, with Matarrita and Andoni Iraola flanking them. The midfield's a question mark. Pirlo's likely going to start, but how do you change it up to make sure he gets a little bit more support? Perhaps you drop Mix Diskerud a little deeper and have Mix Diskerud play more of a support role with Pirlo in moving forward when the time comes, and then McNamara can be underneath the front 3. That'll be something to look for. It also requires a lot of work out of their wide players. So who those are will be interesting. Steven Mendoza, while struggling in attack, was very, very good defensively on Sunday. Perhaps you could see him again, if only for his defensive efforts. If it's Taylor or Shelton, you definitely want to see them play defense. Kind of precludes it not being David Villa, as the winger has to do a lot of defensive work, and that's not really what you want from David Villa. You want him being on the attack and finding ways to score goals. I think this is a tricky matchup for NYCFC against a talented but struggling Columbus team. In the end, I think it ends a draw. I think it is another frustrating point. NYCFC will still be ahead of their points total from last year at this stage, and really ultimately in a condensed and sort of strange Eastern Conference, they'll be in perfectly fine position. And at some point you want to turn into wins. However, I think this will be another draw. It'll be a scoring draw, though. They're actually going to get 2 goals, and will win, and it'll draw 2-2. Unfortunately, the defense will be not quite as strong, partially because of the field factor. I think as much as it hurts our attack, sometimes in Yankee Stadium, it might help our defense as well, because it allows us to be more compact. There will be more space at MetLife Stadium, and I think Ethan Finley is a handful. And if he just needs a moment or two, and he can pick out the perfect cross, find Kai Kamara, and they can get a goal. So the defense will struggle a little bit, but not too much. But allow 2 goals, and it's a 2-2 draw. We shall see. That's Saturday, 7:30 p.m. on the Yes Network. NYCFC goes to Columbus to play the Columbus Crew. And with that, I'm signing off for the week. This is Jonathan Sauerschell from Blue York One News. Check me out at nycfcblues.com and listen to me on Blue City Radio. Have a great week.